Coming up, I'm going to tell you how surrendering your desires to the universe is the easiest way to get what you want. The Unscrewed Mind. Welcome back to The Unscrewed Mind. I'm Matt Williams, and I'm here with another podcast upload. This one is episode 15, where Rusty and I are talking about spiritual surrender. All of our episodes are available on all the major podcasting networks, and I've got a link for this episode in the description below, so click it and check it out. If you have read anything about the law of attraction, then you know that the harder you push for something, the more you need something, the more you repel it or push it away from yourself. That's where surrender comes in. Set your intention and let the universe bring it home for you. And you might be asking yourself, hey, Matt, how do I surrender? And I mean, you know, I'm going to tell you. Here are some easy ways that you can surrender and get what you want out of life. The first step in a spiritual surrender is to be happy no matter what. I like to use this YouTube channel as an example. I'm going to be thrilled when our videos get millions and millions of views. But I'm also happy that I get to make content that someone might watch and enjoy. And the best part is I get to do it with Rusty, who's my best friend. So I'm happy no matter what the results are, and it's a great feeling. Be grateful for what you have right now. Don't save up all your happiness and enjoyment for when you get to the end or to the finish line. There are lots of reasons to celebrate along the way, so make sure that you're taking stock of what you have right now and you're finding a reason to be happy with it. Surrender daily. Say yes to life. My wife recently finished reading a book by Michael Singer called The Surrender Experiment, and amazing things happened in his life when he started saying yes to all the things that came up or came across his path or that the universe brought to his attention. The same thing can happen to you. Just make sure that you're saying yes to those opportunities when they come so that you get those experiences. And then finally, have faith and trust the timing. You need to believe that what you want is on its way to you, and you need to trust or have trust in the fact that it's going to happen when you're ready for it to happen. Rusty and I talk all the time about how great it's going to be when what we want is manifested in our lives. But if it happened overnight, if it all just fell in our lap all of a sudden, would we be able to handle it? We know it's coming, but it's coming when we're ready. And the same thing's going to happen for you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you on the next video. Coming up on episode 15 of The Unscrewed Mind, we're talking about spiritual surrender. Stop forcing life, release control, and trust that the universe, God, a force far stronger than you, will take care of things in the most perfect way possible. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
So this is Unscrewed Mind, episode number 15.
Yeah, lucky number 15.
Lucky number 15. Man,
Yep.
We've been running with the luck now for 3 weeks.
I mean, it was funny when you said it after episode 14. You're like, lucky number 14. So now I want to keep it going. We have two I guess themes rolling. One is we always say the number before we get started, and then now they're all lucky. Just each one's lucky.
Well, they wouldn't be lucky if we didn't say that they were lucky, so it's probably good that we do.
We're affirming it by saying it.
So, or would they be luckier if we weren't putting the pressure of... Anyway, so
Man.
Today's topic is going to be surrender. So this is an interesting topic because, just it kind of intersects in my mind with letting go, but it's almost like letting go is without action in my mind, and surrendering has somewhat more action. Does that make any sense to you? Or are you like, no, neither one of those are?
No, that makes sense to me, but I want you to to expand on it so that I can
No,
make
I
sure
am.
that
I was just
really
going to say,
understand.
I was going to say, see what you said. You're like, no, that makes no sense. So, letting go is, not super focused on what is going on, or what your manifestation is, or, just everything that's coming into your view. And then to me, this is me just from studying and reading about, this is my interpretation. So, I don't know if anyone is 100% right because everybody's drawing conclusions. But surrender is kind of more surrendering to the actions that are taking place and listening for guidance instead of trying to force guidance. Is that your feeling as well?
So in the preparation that I did and the things that I read, absolutely, a big part of the process of surrendering is understanding that there is a larger power at work, that you're giving your desires over to the universe, and then you're allowing the universe to work in your favor. So to me, surrender from a spiritual standpoint definitely means kind of yielding to a power greater than you and watching it go to work.
Yeah. And so personally, I think that it's taken me to surrender. I guess that we haven't been talking as much lately, but I feel like that we've really kind of looked into surrender more in the last 2 or 3 months than we have any other time during our spiritual awakening. Is that how it's been with you, Matt? Or have you been?
I haven't really thought about it. I'm certainly I'm surrendering to a lot of things that maybe I wouldn't have in the past, or I'm letting go. Maybe this is where they intersect, but I'm letting go of things that I would typically have worried about. So,
do you have an example?
Yeah, I think so. Well, let's say one thing that I probably wouldn't have done a few years ago would be make these videos and put them out on YouTube about law of attraction, about manifesting, any of those things. So there's a little bit of surrender to, hey, I'm putting together this content. I'm putting it out there on the internet, and I'm hoping to get a response. And I've had to let go of expectations in some aspects, and just kind of understand and surrender to the fact that the channel is going to grow, or the views are going to come, or the comments are going to come kind of over time. I can't rush it. So that's the example from my perspective. I feel like it applies.
Oh yeah, no, that's for sure. I feel the same way about the podcast, and just so many different things that I've started out on this year, whether it be this podcast, business ventures, the way that I look at my job, and the way that I look at just the way that things happen, inside of my family, and, just letting go of my expectations, but at the same time, surrendering to the fact of that the guide is in place and things are moving how they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that is very opposite than the way that I was. Because I mentioned this before, is I'm like always feeling like it takes an exact action from me in order to make the change. And I've even mentioned it to you a multitude of times. And that's an idea that I've had to let go of, because there's so many interactions that happen that you're not included in, or thought processes that happen that you're not included in directly. So you can't control those things. So you have to be willing to surrender to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
it's interesting you say that. I think a lot of people, most people who are, who haven't started their spiritual enlightenment journey, who are, of the world, I guess, or who haven't looked at this as much as you have, everyone's ego driven. So, the ego is the part of you that wants to control everything and has to have their hands in every aspect. And so for you to say that, prior to where you're at now, you had to feel like you had your hands in and were in control of everything, I think that's natural for everyone. And then one thing I was thinking too is that prior to reading anything about spiritual surrender, my point of view or my definition of surrender prior to that would have been one of like defeat or giving up, like kind of in like a war scenario where you've been defeated in battle and now your only option is to surrender. And the interesting thing about the spiritual surrender is that, it's not that you're giving up. You're not forcing what you want anymore. You're kind of releasing control, and then you're trusting that the universe is gonna make things happen for you. So I just think it's interesting. The word that I thought surrender was prior to who I am now is completely different from what it really means and will mean for me going forward.
Yeah, that's for sure. And when you're looking at actions that you think that need to take place,
Mm-hmm.
are you coming from the spot of an ego thought, or are you coming from a surrender thought? And have you listened, or are you franticking trying to come up with a solution?
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you moving with flow, or are you moving with anxiety or haste? I think that's a big part of it. And, just ask yourself, do you feel frustrated or overwhelmed? And
Mm-hmm.
if you do, then that's your inner being telling you that you're going down the wrong path, or, you're having the wrong thought process about this, because you can be guided and it'd be relaxing if you let it be. But I'll find myself, thinking about things that could happen instead of what I want to happen. And that's been, just a constant battle with me to change those thought processes. And it has to be for everyone, because as many years as you're used to having these internal battles, having these internal conversations with people or situations, and just
Mm-hmm.
thinking of the outcome and replacing it. And that's why I think that the vision, visualizing is such an important part of the entire journey. And just seeing things, for me, puts them a little bit more into the realistic realm. If you're wanting to achieve something, whether it's, buy a car or something, having that picture of that vehicle around you, or a dollar amount, having that visualized, and then letting the universe, God, guide you to it. That's what you're really surrendering to, is you're surrendering to the plan, because the plan is already in motion. You just don't know it because you're consciously thinking of it.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of forces outside of you working to bring what you want towards you. One thing that is interesting and that you bring up is, I don't know what I was reading or where I came across it, but I wrote down this phrase and I put it on one of my computer monitors. So when I'm working, I can see this. And the phrase is, it's a question: what is the best thing that could happen? And the reason I wrote that down is because up until now, the saying that I always heard that I always thought of is what's the worst that could happen, right? Like you should go ahead and try that. What's the worst that could happen? But it's so much more positive and uplifting to phrase it, what's the best thing that could happen? And I think that's the worst thing mindset is something that plagues everyone. I know that it plagued me, and switching it up and getting to the point where you have a positive, what's the best thing mentality is, I think, super important to kind of unlock the key to happiness and just a more positive existence.
Yeah. And when you're thinking the worst thing that could happen, you'll start to notice that you'll be 5 to 15 minutes into that scenario, and it's just broken into something else, into something else, into something else. Like, if this happens, then this is going to happen. If this we're not living in what's going on at the moment in any way whatsoever. And we're not even trying to make actions in the moment. We're just focused on, months away, weeks away, days away, whatever, hours away even, and it's kind of like leading up to getting in front of an audience to give a speech or something. You might have all these negative thoughts going into it. And then when you get up there and you're a couple of seconds into it, that kind of fades away and all the thoughts of negativity that you had are gone. So I think that's a good example of surrendering to the flow of it. Like when you're giving a speech, you're up there, you're in it, you're done. There's no turning back from it. So you just have to go with what you've done or what you've practiced. And you can't, there is no other moment. When you're in the middle of a speech, you're not thinking about, after this speech or 2 months from now or anything like that. Your mind is completely focused on that. And that's really,
that'd be one of the few times where you're like, without trying to be, you're completely in the present moment. Cause you can't be anywhere else when you're doing a speech in front of like 10 or thousands of people,
Yeah. You're definitely getting, you're thinking ahead of what you're going to say next, but it's not, you're not thinking about what you're going to get for dinner or anything like that. So, and that's, practicing being in the moment is something that is super helpful for your surrender and for letting go at the same time, because we're constantly, like I was saying, jumping out of whether it's past or present. And it's like we're programmed not to be in the present moment. It really is, because if you think about school, everything was always based on when we get to the end of this semester, when we get to the end of this school year, when you graduate this, when you do that. You know what I mean? Like, there's no end in sight. It's like you go to school, you have like 3 or 4 graduations throughout school, maybe, and then you've got college, and then you've got a graduation there, and then you're just thrown into the real world. So it's like you're on a never-ending cycle, and nobody slows down nobody tells you when you're a little kid, hey, slow down. Some people think, I guess, people were like, my parents or people mention enjoy your life while when you're younger and all that kind of stuff. And, it's just something that you don't really grasp until it's gone type situation. So I'm always talking to my daughter about how, she should just enjoy it, not want to be older, because she's going to be older, regardless of if she's thinking about being older or not. So just step back and surrender to the time that is now, instead of just hyper focused. I don't know. It's just, it's funny because I can think back when I was hearing something kind of similar, but not exactly the same, way that I'm phrasing it to her, just because I'm thinking from this information when I'm talking to her. I was just like, no, I'm ready to be, 20 years old. So I have my own place. So nobody can tell me what to do. And, that was my thought process when I was little.
Yeah.
And has that how you were, or are you different from that perspective?
I've never really been very driven. So I've always just kind of fallen into the next step sort of as it went. It's interesting if you spend any time and you look back on all of the sort of little nuanced things that had to happen for you to get to a specific spot. And all of those things kind of happened and lined up in perfection. And I've never really spent a whole lot of time worrying kind of or planning what's next. I'd say I do spend a lot of time kind of, or had been spending a lot of time worrying about what's next, but I've never, I never had in my mind here's the next thing I'm going to do when this thing is accomplished. I don't know. It's just never really kind of been a part.
Surrender?
I don't think I was ultimately surrendered because I was, definitely stressed out and anxious for what could be coming. I think maybe if I had a plan or some goals, I would have known what I was working towards. But up until this past year, I really haven't had any. So, it's interesting when you think about stuff like that, because if I probably wasted a bunch of years not necessarily having a direction that I was trying to move in.
Yeah, I mean, I can say that I've always had the next goal in mind when moving into a goal that I just achieved.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just natural for me. But I was always limiting what that goal could be.
Mm-hmm.
So I was taking baby steps instead of, I had a grand goal, but it wasn't like as grand as it is now. It was definitely a limited belief, and a limitation on myself. So I think that that's really what's changed the most for me is it's let me see, I see things unfolding in my life, and, I feel like that I get signs from the universe. I mean, everybody talks about, seeing the 11:11, on the clock, or rainbows, just different things that you can see during a spiritual awakening. And, I see all those things, plus just people that I've met and talked to. It's definitely a plan that's coming together that has nothing to do with me. It's just coming into my view.
Can I ask you a question? Because this is when you look up law of attraction or law of vibration and you read a lot of stuff, there's a lot of allowing, there's a lot of surrender, there's a lot of letting go. But I mean, ultimately, at some point, you're going to have to move into action, or you're going to have to act. So I would ask you, you see all these signs, and you're holding firm to faith, and you trust that the universe is doing all these things for you, and they're lining up. How do you know when it's time to jump? How do you know when it's right and it's time to move? If that makes sense.
Man, I really think that the working on the inside of you and the thought controls is the most important first step. And when the action comes into play, it seems like it's more natural, and the idea comes to you to do it. And, I'm not saying, I think that a lot of people listen to Abram Hicks and think that there's absolutely nothing that needs to be done forever. And you could say that that's a limiting belief to say that you do need to do something, but what fun would anything be if you weren't on the journey of it happening?
Right.
I don't know. I think that we've had tons of conversations around this, and I think that we've changed our thought process behind it as we go, but just enjoying the things that you do have in your life right now leads to the actions of the things that you do want. And so focusing on being what you put out is what you receive. And that was something that was like, because you've got a goal in mind. Well, you want to just say, I'm dropping everything and moving towards this goal. But you got to keep in mind that you already had a goal that you were working for or working towards, whether you believe it or not. You had something that you were working towards, or you had a programming that you were accomplishing. And so you're steering a ship. You have to give it time to turn in that direction and to get to that destination.
Yeah, that's very good. And that's one of the things that I read on spiritual surrender. It had a list of some things that were super important. Two of them stand out: faith and then patience, right? Things can happen immediately, and then sometimes there's a gestation period and it takes time, and you've got to surrender to the timing, and you got to have faith that it's coming. And I think that those are kind of two important aspects of life in general, is having faith in a power other than you, that's stronger than you, and then patience to allow that power to work for you.
Yeah. And could you ever imagine going back to the other way of living? Because I've thought about it, and there is no way possible for that to even occur. You can't just say, oh, I didn't learn that, and that's not a thing. I'm going,
almost, I think less, I didn't learn that, but I think it's what you felt, I think that like you feel a difference between who you were previously and who you are now. Just like, at least I do. And I think that'd be the harder part to let go. Cause I forget things. I'm a forgetful person. So I would forget the information, but I would know that I felt different.
No, okay. Well, here's for me is I cannot just say, you know what, I'm going to start watching TV, watching Netflix, listening to all, not paying attention at all to my life again. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
I just find it difficult to fall into my old patterns because I immediately see them and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I can't even turn on Netflix and watch anything. It's a real good problem, I guess, but it's a real problem from the perspective. The show that you were telling me about, Matt, that you were watching with your family, what was it?
Oh no, which one was the meditation one?
No. It was the Marvel one, the new one that just came out.
WandaVision.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I've got to have some kind of, relaxation thing outside of, meditating or walking or, I was just thinking something to make my brain not think for a few minutes,
Right.
And I can't do it. I really can't. I watch it and I'm just like, this is the worst waste of time ever. That's just how I feel about it now.
Yeah.
And it's just so weird because that's not who I was. I was definitely a person that would, everybody's talking about a show, I would jump on board and watch it. And
you used to make countless show recommendations. That was something you would do. Hey, have you watched this? Hey, have you seen this? And you definitely don't do that anymore. And I know not to, because I watch some stuff, but I know not to make recommendations to you other than in a joking manner, because you'll just never watch them ever.
Right. Like the one that I like to make fun of the most is the Tiger King.
Yeah. Well, you like the Michael Jordan one the best. The Last Dance one was your favorite one to make fun of.
Yeah. Because it was funny because it was like the second the second coming after that Tiger King.
Yeah.
It was the strongest indicator of mass brainwashing, right?
For sure.
Have you seen it? Hey guys, before we start this conference call today, I just wanted to check to see if anybody saw the Tiger King over the weekend.
Man, the number of pictures that were shared where someone's head was superimposed on the Tiger King's head next to a tiger, I can't even count them. It's like, here's Bob so-and-so with his Tiger King picture, and it's like, we don't have to start every possible call with a picture like this. We just don't have to. Good stuff. But they're living their best life, and they thought they were doing what needed to be done. So who am I to judge?
I guess I shouldn't say brainwashing, though. I should say programming, because brainwashing
paradigms.
So anyway, if you're out there today and you're struggling, just know that the process is in place, and it's already taking place, and it's already going in a direction, whether you like it. Hopefully you do like it, because that's what you've set your goals as, but it's going to go that direction. And you may not like what you're seeing at this exact moment, but keeping the faith and knowing that it's coming is definitely a way better way to be than to be thinking of all the things that could possibly happen on, whatever day. That's not today.
Become a part of the Unscrewed Mind by following us on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Unscrewed Mind. Also, feel free to email Rusty and I. Our address is unscrewedmind@gmail.com. Tell us what you thought of the show, pitch a subject for a future show, or just say hi. And until next time, stay grateful.